Rick. This is one of my favorite topics. I mean, it really is one of my favorite topics. But franchise websites, and clearly, with what we've done with awards this month, we've started at least dissecting where do brands currently stand when it comes to their development site. Just overarching thoughts on the value of a website when it relates to franchise sales in today's franchise development climate.
Thoughts on it?
Yeah, just general opinions.
Yeah, general opinion. I think we're still. I think the franchise consumer is moving a lot faster than we are, and we being the industry, the consumer already has an opinion, right? Long before they reach out and have contact with us, they have an opinion of the brand, and I think franchise development websites haven't quite caught up with that concept.
Do you think that's because the budget comes out of a development person's pocket versus they're lacking the opportunity to take a holistic marketing approach to the way that the journey will go for a prospective franchisee?
I think the buyer is actually looking for an organization that's cohesive and well integrated. Where in today's in some brands in today's market, you have a guy, a phone, and a budget for a website, and hey, here, go make something happen, as opposed to it being part of the corporate site and part of the consumer side, and leveraging the consumer side validation and transparency.
Do you think what is it going to take for the industry to change that mindset, or even on you have some franchise development folks that don't budget heavily for this piece of their business when it is arguably one of the most important lead generation entry points. What is it going to take to shake up the industry and say that there's more value in this and to catch up to the way that the consumers are behaving outside of the site?
Yeah, I think there's a how do I say this? A heavy mentality around well, what's the other guy doing, right? Oh, well, so and so is still doing it the old school way. They're still doing a standalone website. They're still off on their own, and that's how XYZ brand does it. That's the way we should do it, or that's the way we've always done it in the past. What's it going to take for that to change? Well, I would imagine we're starting to see some change today where brands start to integrate some, but I think it starts at the top. I really believe it needs to start at the executive level at the brand.
Are you able to have those conversations with C-suite to say, here's the value of what we're trying to present, even you as a business, that we can solve the problem that you have by structuring a site that supports the due diligence of the buyer, and gives them an easy place to find all the information they're going to need when they're doing their homework?
Yeah, sometimes. More often than not, the buyer is actually the franchise development salesperson, and it's really hard to tell your buyer that the way they want to do it is not the way they should do it. And when you do, it's generally not exceptionally well received. Well, that's the way I've always done it. I really want to do it this way.
So when you were looking at the sites and you were evaluating it from usability, the ease of the form, what are some of the things that stood out as good, things that you see that are moving when it comes to development sites?
Yep. So the research our brand, or discover our brand, where you're giving easy access to information, essentially answering the top 5 or top 10 questions that you would receive right out of the gate from a buyer, because the buyer is looking for that information to help with their validation prior to getting on the phone with you. And I think the more information that you can put in their hands, the more likely they are to dialogue with you. You remember the days where they used to lock down all of the franchise development information and require your contact information and so forth prior to giving it to you. And I think those days are quickly falling behind us.
Yeah, that there was a time where you had to jump through the hurdles of unlocking the next chapter of a PowerPoint.
Right.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, so the good news is the industry has come a long way. Yeah, I think there's a good point there in that the prospect is performing majority of their due diligence outside of your website. They need that website to find the information that is going to be required and authentic, coming from your brand in an easy way. But their buying process is much deeper than just a website. So the franchise brands, in my opinion, that end up doing it the right way are the ones that say, all right, let's look at the holistic journey, and that could even go dial all the way back into we're exhibiting at a trade show. What happens when this person leaves the trade show? It could be we spent money on PPC. Now they go into the site. Now it's interesting. I think franchise sales as a whole still wants to believe that A plus B equals C, but take either of those scenarios that I clicked on a PPC ad, just because I didn't fill out the form doesn't mean there's not value in that. They might go around the web and do homework for the next 6 months before they even turn into a lead. Or, hey, they came to a trade show, saw you there. They may not act on it for 2 years from now, but that impression still counts. That the holistic approach is still valuable to that's ultimately what the conclusion's coming to is for a while the franchise website was put on this pedestal as the be all end all. It's a part of the puzzle piece today.
Right. Do you remember the old school rule of seven in sales,
Sure.
where this is pre-internet days, right? Um, you touch a prospect 7 times, phone call, handshake, handwritten note,
Right. Right.
right? That number today is 15 to 35 touch points, and for franchise development, it can go a lot higher depending on your buyer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I think the franchise sales, call it universe, has also tried simplifying it that we're selling widgets. And the reality is we're selling a life decision. When it comes to buying a franchise, you're talking about taking every penny that you saved up in many cases, securing a loan from the bank, leveraging yourself completely and taking a risk to make more money for your family. That is not buying a candy bar. Yet even on a rule of 7, if that's what it takes to buy a candy bar, and 15 to 30 is a franchise or even more, the brands are rarely looking at, are we really touching them in all the places? But in my opinion, I think that's because some of the pressures that come from, say, a CEO saying, I want 30 deals this year. Well, how many deals did you do last year? I did 10. Is my budget tripling? No, it's going down. Go get me 30 deals. I think there's all these complexity that if you look at the entire issue, it's greater than just websites. It's all over the place.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that in the cost of acquisition. Year over year has continued to go up. In my opinion, that's actually the buyer journey. That's actually the buyer being more
Yeah.
and more diligent
Yeah.
and struggling to find the information that they're looking for. And I think the sooner the industry as a whole puts as much transparency out there as possible, everything from consumer reviews all the way through the experience. What's it like to walk through a location? What does it look like inside? I think they're going to see the fruits of that labor fairly quickly.
So in this world where every data point is microscopic, and that franchisor X says I spent $10,000 on pay per click, what did I get back? How do you set expectations as a business, or what are KPIs? What should be expected? How do you answer that when someone says, well, what should I expect?
Right. So that's a tricky question and a slippery slope. A small emerging brand is a whole lot different than a mature brand. A mature brand, you have a lot to work with. A newer brand, you may not have as most likely as much to work with. So transparency actually becomes that much more important. Um, Communicating your unique selling proposition, your USP, becomes crucially important. Having that clear and crisp and easy to understand, and people going, oh, I get why people would do business with that brand. I understand why I would be successful is something that a lot of times is missed. It's the what's in it for me mentality is being missed. It's, oh, we're a great brand and we've got awards. What does that award really do for someone that's getting ready to invest their life savings? Would be my question.
Yeah, I think that's where the backwards behavior comes. That if you're trying to sell a candy bar, I get all those tactics, but when you're trying to sell a franchise, it's so much larger. But salespeople have been trained, and part of it is because of the enormous amount of pressures that are placed on them. They've been trained to sell, not develop. The reality is, if franchise development was done correctly, the salesperson's job or role in the process is to answer the questions of the prospect, one, and then two, obviously to have some sort of gut conclusion whether that person would be valuable for the brand. But in a world where we're so set on selling number of units, it's hard. You're looking at units sold, not at the potential value from a royalty standpoint.
Right. And being a bit more selective, right? Does that person really fit the brand, right? As opposed to, okay, well, yep, they can fog a mirror, so, and they have the money,
Right.
so I guess they'll be good enough, right? That's ultimately going to hurt you in the long run, because again, about validation from the consumer side and the transparency of really understanding of what that brand is about and what the experience is like and
Yeah.
why you would be successful, right? Then you get somebody talking bad about you out there because they weren't successful,
Yeah.
and you have closures.
Right. Yeah, I mean, none of this is challenging. I mean, if you look at brands that actually hit growth cycle, they qualified those first 10 well. They provided the support that they said they would do so that they could drive strong unit level economics for those first 10. Those first 10 started telling their friends to get involved with it. People started investigating the brand, asked them, why did you buy into the brand? They validated the brand. It keeps growing. So the conclusion and everything that I'm saying still is, one, the qualification is so critical. Two, the thing that sells franchises the best for any true growth brand is franchisees.
Right. Are they, are the franchisees happy? Are they making money? Do they have good unit economics, right? Can you validate that? Can you get somebody to get on the phone and actually tell them not just the good stuff, but, when you're checking references, you also want to hear the bad stuff because there's, nobody's perfect. But, the validation test all the way around needs to feel right. And I think online reviews and testimonials are also a big part of that. People going out into the blogosphere and reading social media posts that may not be so favorable to your brand. It's about managing those as a brand as a whole, as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm going to sell some franchises and
Yep.
hopefully they won't see that bad write up about me.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's true. It's about managing it. The truth is, every brand, Google, you could take the greatest brands with the highest promoter scores in the world. They still have had hiccups, bad moments, people not aligned, not the right fits. And all that material is part of the journey that the buyer should be studying to come to a conclusion whether the brand makes sense for them. And on the reverse, brands should be doing the same thing. They should be studying the social footprints of those that are coming into their brand. They should be listening to reviews from former coworkers. Now, the amount of time that's allocated towards the sales process might not be as much as it should be, or it's so focused on how do we get them to the finish line so they're signing this agreement. But the reality is, if you apply basics back to the way that franchising should be done, then those brands should be the ones that win.
And I think you see that in today's market. I think you do. I think if you really peel back the onion and you look at those successful brands, I think you can probably really pinpoint the ones that are doing that and the ones that aren't. Again, it's you asked what's it take for this to change, and I think it's just going to take time. I think it's a learning experience for the brands. It's a huge amount of investment. It's a huge amount of pressure, right, to keep moving for franchise development, to keep moving forward, and they can't take a chance to step back and say, okay, let's try something different, and hopefully that'll work, right?
Yeah.
Because it's you need the whole brand engaged with that.
Let's end with this. As you were studying these sites, maybe the thing that you liked the most, not specific or necessarily specific to a brand, but some sort of theme or idea or concept that you liked the most, and what frustrated you the most of what you were seeing.
What frustrated the most was lack of information. When you just give the same information or the process information as opposed to actually answering my real questions, which brings me to what I like the most when I see you answering the real questions and the questions are generally the same across
Yeah.
brands, but you may have very more specific items that are apply to your concept that you answer and you provide that information for up front, answering those questions, no friction, making it easy in today's environment of Uber and Grubhub, people expect information to be easy as well. So that would be probably what I liked the most, was the sites that had ease to answer those questions.
I love it, Rick. We appreciate you helping us on this. Your expertise is obviously rich. So any brand that's watching this, there's some good takeaways for you. But appreciate you putting all the time and energy into this.
Absolutely, Nick. Thank you very much for your time today.
Great. Take care.